Coming up next, Madalyn Murray O'Hare, the founder of the American Atheists, addressed the group's 1990 convention in St. Petersburg, Florida. Ms. O'Hare initiated the Supreme Court case which removed Bible reading and prayer from the nation's public schools, and she founded the American Atheists in 1963. Ms. O'Hare discusses atheist litigation and the First Amendment in her remarks.
I'd like to begin to introduce our next speaker. It's a little difficult to introduce, whether it's a relation or not, someone who is so famous, not alone in the United States, but throughout the world. And of course, the name Madalyn Murray or Madalyn Murray O'Hare has become, I think, synonymous in the last 30 years with the word atheist or atheism itself, and also, unfortunately, with the religious community, synonymous with many other things that I perhaps can't say on television. Dr. O'Hare has been at the atheist organizing business and movement for 27 years now officially, since June of 1963, and her victory in the case of Murray versus Curlett, which removed Bible reading and prayer recitation from the nation's public schools. That has probably been one of the most misunderstood decisions ever handed down by the United States Supreme Court, and was one of the longest in its history in terms of actual pages. But what the court said, of course, was that religious ceremonies were not proper in the public schools. It did not say that individual students could not on their own pray in the public schools, and she will talk, I'm sure, a little bit about that. But after that case, when she was thrown into essentially professional atheism, having been stripped of her education essentially, that is, with an inability to ever work again in America because of her notoriety, her several master's degrees, her doctor's degree, didn't really do her any good, because she was thrown into the position of needing to essentially start a cause organization. She took the few names of the people who had supported her through that case and built a mailing list out of them, and from that mailing list she has been able to establish a living, growing atheist consortium, I think, of atheist corporations, set up, among other goals, to survive her and to go on for what we hope will be many hundreds of years. She has had many excellent ideas and foresight. She established the first American Atheist radio series in the United States, which ran for some years, ran for some 500 weekly programs. She initiated the first American Atheist magazine back in the 1960s. She had the idea of having an American Atheist library in which books and pamphlets and anything in dissent to religion from all over the world would be housed and stored. And that library, now in the American Atheist General Headquarters in Austin, Texas, is filled with over 60,000 some odd atheist books from around the world, going back as far as 300 years old. She also was able to reach out early in the game to international contacts, to India, to Europe. She has established a United World Atheists to reach out to the European groups. Those of you, and the Asian groups, those of you who have been at these conventions before know that we have a speaker from a different country every year. The gentleman from France will be speaking later on today. She has initiated many legal actions. The organization which she founded has initiated over 50 legal actions for separation of state and church concerns in its short 27-year history. That amounts to just about 2 a year. She has established a trust fund for the future of atheism. I know of just about no other cause organization at all in the United States that even has a trust fund at all, or has the concept of putting money away for the future. And she has been instrumental in putting together the idea of an American atheist press, that is, to reprint atheist books and to keep them in print and to keep the atheist line of thought from dying out, and to keep them available to people or available in the libraries. And more recently, the American Atheist News Forum on cable television, and I know very few other cause organizations that are as deeply involved in cable television as is American Atheists. They are usually on in just the city of their headquarters, and American Atheists Forum can be seen on cable television in over 100 cities. So she has really been a driving force for atheism in America, and I think the appellation, the most hated woman in America, that Fact magazine gave her in the 60s, comes from the fact that she has been an activist of some repute, because of course the religious community is always going to hate most that thing which gets out and does the most, and that has been Madalyn Murray O'Hair. However, to me, she's just mother, and despite her horns in the head image from the Christians, she is actually a very loving person, a good mother, fine grandmother, fine homemaker, pretty good cook, great button sewer on her, and all of those home-type things that people don't associate with somebody as outspoken as Madalyn Murray O'Hair, but she does do those things too. So, without further ado, Dr. Madalyn Murray O'Hair.
Gee, and you don't even know if my speech is going to be any good or not. Thank you also, John Murray, and I do yield to my granddaughter, Robin Murray O'Hair, who is a better cook than I am. I've been giving speeches at American Atheist conventions for the last 20 years. Oh, in Chicago, New York, Detroit, Los Angeles, Washington, D.C., Minneapolis, Dallas, Denver, San Francisco, just about every place, as the annual convention moves across the country for the convenience of atheists living everywhere. I think, actually, that what we wanted to do was to give the media in all of those cities, everywhere, an equal opportunity to distort and misrepresent everything that I had to say. That is the history of the Association of American Atheists' encounters with the media. This year, C-SPAN is taping this speech to be released nationally later. For the first time in the history of the United States, everyone can listen to what an atheist actually says, and they do not need to read an interpretation put onto such a speech by a paid hireling of commercial media. That is, I think, what C-SPAN really is all about. Letting the people of the nation hear and see, giving them the raw material from which they make their own judgment. It's only reasonable and fair that this is so. Americans, and I thank C-SPAN for scheduling this opportunity, that we may express a minority viewpoint without distortion, without censorship, without being put into an adversary position needing to fight through hostile, badgering questions even as we speak. I want to talk to you today and use it as a theme, a current case that is going on in the United States that is currently being appealed to the United States Supreme Court, asking that body for certiorari, which is review. In Austin, Texas, where we live, in recent years, say 20, members of the American Atheists' primary family, the Murray O'Hair, and I have been called for jury duty. First, we receive a summons ordering us to appear in court with several hundred other persons so that juries can be picked to serve at various courts in the county. If we did not appear, we would be fined and charged with a criminal activity for non-appearance for jury duty. The summons asked a number of questions which we really did not feel when we received it that were any of the business of the court. But you know, what the hell. You go along and you're a good citizen and you try to do what you can do in order to be in compliance with the laws, and that's a fundamental principle of atheism, to be in compliance with American laws. How many children do you have, is the first question asked. And then incredibly, what sex are they? Will this help you to be a juror? And then immediately after that, the next question up, what is your religion? Now that's a hot issue. This month you all received census forms to fill out. Did you notice that there was no question about your religion? This is because there has been a continuing battle between religion and the government, and at the federal level, no federal official may ask you what your religion is. Starting in the 1860s, the United States Bureau of Census attempted to gather information on religion. They asked how many people were religion, what churches they went to, and how much money and land the churches owned. From 1860 until after the Second World War ended, the churches fought that until in 1940 they were able to discontinue those questions. They will not be counted. And the reason that the federal government found out that they didn't like it is because they hid how much property they owned, how much cash they had, and they boosted by at least 12% the figures that they gave for attendance at churches. But here we have in Texas an information form demanding that we say what religions we have. Well, we ignored that blank on the summons, and we returned it with a no answer, because atheists have no religion at all. When we came to the courts, however, summons in hand, we found out that we were required to fill in that blank which demanded our religion. Well, all right, atheists don't have a religion. What do? You put down the word atheist in order to get into this courtroom. And we were told that by an officer standing at the door. The blank has to be filled in. And our answer was, no, it doesn't. The Supreme Court has said, quote, neither a state nor the federal government can force or influence a person to profess a belief or a disbelief in any religion. We were literally taken by the ear and said, you put down the word atheist and then go in and sit down. Well, we're proud of being atheists. You know, we don't mind writing that anywhere. I had planned along the way to have it tattooed on my forehead. But I'll be damned if I'm going to let the state of Texas or anyone else shove it down my throat that atheism is a religion. Which brings us to the question, what is an atheist? Well, the word comes from the Latin, you know that. Theist means a religious person, a God believer. Well, in words of Greek or Latin derivation, an a, which is used as a prefix, is what is called a privative. That is, in this instance, it takes away from the word theism, and it means that the person professing this is without theism. This is simply all that an atheist is. Only this and nothing more. We are without theism. Don't read into our position what is not there. Atheists have no religion. They are without religion, and I'll get back to more later. But having been forced to put the word atheist under the category of religion, members of the Murray O'Hare family were then seated in the courtroom, and that's when the fun began. The laws of the state of Texas require that a large pool of persons who have been summoned into the court take an oath about how they will answer certain questions posed to them so that they can serve on a jury. Anyone over 65 is immediately out. Any person having children under 10 years of age, of either sex, I presume, cannot serve on a jury if that child needs attention and care. And also, if anyone is in a secondary or public school, they need not serve on a jury, or if they are in attendance at an institution of higher learning. But the oath is this, and I'll read it to you, because the law says you shall take this oath. Not you might, you may, you will, you can. but you shall take this oath. You and each of you do solemnly swear that you will true answers give to all questions propounded to you concerning your qualifications as a juror, so help you God. There we were, sitting in a courtroom with several hundred people, and we were immediately singled out because we were being asked to take a God oath, which we could not take. So what about us? Atheists do not ask God for help in order to answer questions. As far as we are concerned, this is nonsense. God isn't going to help anyone answer any question, anytime, anywhere, simply because there is no God. And that is, he's not going to help anyone answer a question about whether or not they can be a juror, or he's not going to help answer any question when a husband comes home smelling of booze and perfume. He's going to let him take it on the chin himself. And this is all primarily because there is no God. Each time the Murray O'Hare family has been confronted by this oath, they have refused to mouth it. And what has been the consequences? My son, John Murray, who introduced me, was told to get the hell out of the courtroom. He could not serve as a juror. He was excused from the panel because he had refused to say, "So help me God." I had a judge order the bailiff to come and grab me by physical force and take me to his office, where I was locked in and kept a prisoner until he got rid of the rest of the applicants for jury service, and then come in and get me and pull me out in front of his bench to dress me down. I was verbally abused by this judge because I had refused to take an oath, so help me God. But with Robin Murray O'Hare, the matter was even worse, because she was taken to a county jail, charged with contempt of court, strip-searched, forced to take a cold shower, deprived of her clothing, and slammed into a jail cell with prostitutes, drug addicts, and criminals because she refused to say, "So help me God." This is a young woman who is internationally known as the editor-in-chief of the American Atheist magazine, and whose scholastic record at the University of Texas is probably one of the most outstanding that university has ever had. She was ordered to stay in that jail cell until she submitted to the oath, or another one that the judge might make up. We had to file a writ of habeas corpus to get her out of jail and away from this kind of brutalization because she was an atheist. Is this a free country for everybody? But atheists. Had any of us got past that first oath, had we been picked to serve on a specific jury in a specific court elsewhere, there's another oath. And again, I'll read it to you from the statutes, and you shall take this. You and each of you do solemnly swear that in all cases between parties which shall be to you submitted, you will a true verdict render, according to the law, as it may be given to you in a charge by the court, and to the evidence submitted to you under the rulings of this court, so help you God. We're asked to ask God to help us to come to a decision over facts. No atheists need God to help them look at the evidence in any court trial. This is simply preposterous. Besides, there's an old standby, a secular one, that could have been used in any of these courts, and that simply is: 1, I will, under pains and penalty of perjury, true answers give, and 2, I will look at the evidence and render a true verdict on my honor as a fellow human being. That's all we need. This story was carried on every radio and television and in all hard media. By hard media, I mean newspapers, magazines, journals, and so on. All about those recalcitrant atheists who would not take an oath in God. And just 10 days later, George Bush, who was running for the presidency of the United States, got into this act. Just this 10 days later, when he was in Chicago, Illinois, at O'Hare Airport, and an atheist reporter asked him this question: "What will you do to win the votes of Americans who are atheists?" And George Bush answered, and this is an absolute correct quote, "I guess I'm pretty weak in the atheist community. Faith in God is important to me." Well, Rob Sherman, our reporter, was set aback by this, so he pushed him a little bit. He said, "Well, surely you recognize the equal citizenship and patriotism of Americans who are atheists." And Bush answered, again, verbatim, "No, I don't know that atheists should be considered as citizens, nor should they be considered as patriots. This is one nation under God." George Bush. Well, I'll pause there because I want you to consider that a minute. I don't know what any of you are, who you're associated with, but what if George Bush had said, "No, I don't know that Roman Catholics should be considered as citizens"? Could he have gotten away with that? Also, had he said, "No, I don't know that women should be considered as citizens"? Could he have gotten away with that? Even if he had said, "Well, they're black." You know, he likes Hispanics. He's got a grandchild. Even if they were black, if he'd said, "Well, they're black, they can't be considered as citizens," there would have been a national uproar. Because he was talking about atheists, there wasn't one single media, except atheist media, which would carry this story. It was a total blackout, not one peep. Well, we got back to Bush. We're not going to take it. And since he has been in the White House, he has, on 2 occasions now, had White House attorneys write to us, essentially backing up this original statement. Is this one nation under God? I think it's one nation under the Constitution. Listen to this. What kind of nation does George Bush think he is heading? Listen to this. You all know the words. "When in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them to another. A decent respect for the opinion of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation." Do you hear anything in there about God? Did they give a damn about God's opinion? Did they say when in the God-given course of our nation? Or did they talk about the course of human events? And then they got to the Constitution, and it was even better. There isn't one word about God in the Constitution of the United States. They didn't call on God to witness that Great Britain was abusing the colonies. Their concern first was with the opinion of mankind, not with the opinion of God. And then when they got to the Constitution, they said, "We the people." They didn't call on God at all. "We the people, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and to our posterity, we do ordain and establish this Constitution of the United States." They weren't praying. They were making an assertion as about the activity of human beings and what they could do. God is totally ignored in the Constitution. But George Bush doesn't know that. And the great state of Texas doesn't know it, because they have all come up with the notion that this is one nation under God. And that's just about as foolish as any politician can be. Where do atheists fit in a scheme like this? What about our rights? What about our civil liberties? Regardless of what George Bush says or thinks, we are citizens of the nation, and many atheists have died in our wars, and many atheists are veterans. I myself am a veteran. I served as a commissioned officer in the Women's Army Corps, in the Signal Corps, in the African Theater of Operations, and in the European Theater of Operations in the Second World War. I served for 3 years overseas, and there are atheists in foxholes. They are everywhere the nation asks them to be. Well, John filed this suit on August 11th, 1987, and the federal district court in Austin, Texas gave a verdict that is so incredible that I must read several sentences to you. The judge said, "Trials are public forums, and a citizen who wishes to see the courts in action may visit at any time. However, there is no constitutional cognizable right to view the courts from the vantage point of a jury box." John wasn't in there as a visitor. He had been summoned to appear. He would have been fined if he didn't appear, and he would have had a record of that kind of activity. He didn't wander through the court one day hoping to sit in the jury box. He did not fall into any of the four categories who were excused. You can look at him. He's not 65. He doesn't have a child under 10 who needs to be supervised. He's not a secondary school student, and he was not actually in an institution of higher learning. He should have been accepted as a juror. He was excluded from jury service for one reason and one reason alone. He was an atheist, and he refused to take a God oath. So he was also forced to profess that atheism is a religion. Now, we hear a lot in America, and even the court system has said to us, well, if you don't want to take an oath, affirm. We can't affirm. We're atheists. And affirmation is more insulting to an atheist than an oath. And the reason for this is that the affirmation was built into legal doctrines only to accommodate the most literal, fundamentalist interpretations of the Bible. Let me read something else to you. This is Jesus Christ giving marching orders to Christians. Matthew 5:33 to 36. JC now. "Again, ye have heard that it hath been said by them of old times, Thou shalt not forswear thyself, but shalt perform unto the Lord thine oaths. But I say unto you, swear not at all, neither by heaven, nor for it is God's throne, nor by the earth, for it is his footstool, neither by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great king, and neither shalt thou swear by thy head, because thou canst not make one hair white or black. But first, let your communication be yea, yea, nay, nay, for whatsoever is more than these cometh of evil. And because of this, certain religions refuse to take an oath, and they take an affirmation instead, and we won't touch it with a 10-foot pole." However, Texas courts, Texas judges, and now federal judges all know more about Christianity than did Jesus Christ. The affirmation was invented to be used specifically by the Quakers, the Moravians, the Dunkers, the Mennonites, Jehovah's Witnesses, so that they might, quote, swear not at all. The case of John Murray finally worked its way up to the Fifth Federal Circuit Court of Appeals, and it was heard there on my father's birthday, February the 5th, just a couple months ago. Now let me tell you a little bit about federal courts. It's very difficult to get a review from a lower court hearing. Only a very few make it up that first rung of the appellate ladder. And of these, hardly any, I think only 2 or 3%, are scheduled for oral arguments. Well, this jury case was accepted. It was scheduled for oral arguments. The Fifth Federal Circuit Court of Appeal knew that it was an important case, and they took it and they scheduled it. And then the cream got sour. And it got sour because we were checking on it, and we found that the court of the Fifth Federal Circuit Court of Appeals opened its hearings with a special call. Hear this, hear this. This case is now in session. God save this honorable court. The hope that the court would be impartial in deciding vanished that day. This was also carried all over the nation. This is the theater of the absurd. John wrote to them and demanded that they eschew the use of this called to God for help. Those Fifth Circuit judges were so furious that it showed on their face and in their voices. And although we were scheduled for a certain number of minutes of argument, they got us the hell out of there in about 3 or 4 minutes. They didn't bother. They hustled the oral arguments through, and they never give decisions for months after this. But with us, we got the decision right away. And this is what the Fifth Federal Circuit Court of Appeals said. The occasion to serve on a jury is undeniably a duty, a privilege, and an opportunity for many citizens to actively and personally serve their government. But nonetheless, it upheld the lower court decision of exclusion of atheists from that duty, that privilege, and that opportunity. Everyone concerned with the case understood that we lost it at the Fifth Federal Circuit Court of Appeals only because we challenged their opening. John Murray is now in the position that he is appealing to the United States Supreme Court. The appeal has to be finished by the 15th day of next month. But my God, excuse the expression, the United States Supreme Court also opens with a cry. And here it is. Oyez, God, save our nation and this honorable court. Now, how can the Supreme Court in the nation be fair to atheists who are asking to overturn the decision of an appellate court who called on God, and that appellate court was handling a decision of a federal lower court who called on God, who was handling the decision of the Texas court who demanded the jurors to call on God? How can we get any place with this? The legal system has degenerated into a poor joke. Why do they hate us? Why do they hate us? Why does George Bush think we aren't fit to be citizens? Why would he deny us citizenship in his statements in order to give the religious cause to attack us? Why do the courts, from the lowest to the highest in the land, have an active hatred of atheists and signal this in their opening? Atheists are axiomatically deprived of all rights, and I'm only talking about this one judicial right just now because there are hundreds of others. Several years ago, we did a sociological study of the atheists in our organization, and we had a sample return of 1,500, which is pretty good, we think. 1,500 of our atheists completed their questionnaires. And what did this show? Why do we scare the bejesus out of the Christians? 74% are male, 96% are Caucasians, 52% were single. Who's afraid of that? Why should Bush say we can't be citizens? Why should we be told we couldn't serve on a jury? Shouldn't we be counted? Let's get on. 25% have one college degree, another 22% have more than one college degree, and another 13% have more than 2 college degrees. This means that we are a highly educated group of persons. 62% of us own our own houses. Compare that to the national statistics. So all of this makes us pariahs. 32% were under 40, 32% were 40 to 50, and 36% were 50 or over. 65% had incomes which put them into upper middle class. What professions had they chosen? They are gentlemen farmers, antique dealers, environmental planners, interior designers, teachers, professors, nurses, doctors, lawyers, judges, journalists, sales representative, commercial investors, engineers of every conceivable kind, builders, architects, computers, programmers, real estate brokers, career armed forces personnel who aren't even citizens, you see. Incidentally, a nurse helped us to put this convention together right here in St. Petersburg. But in addition to this, atheists were homemakers, students, nurses, administrators, and executives in corporations. They are artists, psychologists, psychiatrists, movie stars. Madalyn, don't use my name. Comedians, rock singers, politicians. Madalyn, I will lose the next election if you say so. Why should George Bush consider them not good enough to be citizens? Why can't they serve on our juries? Why are they excluded because this is one nation under God? Well, let's look further. And I think I see a glimmer of all of the trouble. They engage in the single most dangerous activity in the nation, each and every one of them. They read. 74% of them read at least 1 to 6 books a month. 48% subscribe to and read at least 6 journals a month. And those are professional journals, news, political journals, cause materials. And boy, is ecology high on everybody's list. They know there's no other world than this, and they're not going to escape from it. They want it cleaned up. What is more important, and George Bush should know this, 83% practice the franchise. They vote in city, county, state, and national elections. 35% vote for what they call an independent choice. 28% are Democrats, 9% are Republicans, and 9% Libertarians. 12% would vote socialist if we had a party like that. But is this any reason to say we can't serve on a jury? That we can't be considered by the president to be citizens? The statistics bear out that the atheists are the nation's finest citizens, bar none. Incidentally, when religions make a survey, they pick 300 people, and the national media carries it everywhere. We had a sampling of 1,500 people, and we couldn't get a peep. Nobody was interested in knowing anything about atheism. Well, let's dig a little bit deeper, because we have to find out, why do they hate us? I personally think it's because we're superior people. But let's go on anyway. Every single person watching me or hearing me, even some of you atheists, yes, you have feelings of personal inadequacy. It clings to you in your personal relationship. It's on your job. It's with your family. Even when you face yourself all alone, you have feelings of personal inadequacy. This is because every society has a system of social controls whereby individual members learn to adjust to the social behavior of which the society approves. And this training proceeds from infancy, and the value and the goals that it instills in you become so internalized in your mind that you do not question them or even think about them. In the Western cultures, the most powerful institution involved in this massive psychological and social conditioning is organized religion. Religion is formidable in that it has the ability to make disadvantageous and even distasteful controls seem palatable and even desirable to any individual. This institution, hallowed by tradition and George Bush, weakens the will to act as individuals, since its doctrines of obedience, doctrines of authority, doctrines of repentance, doctrines of fear of punishment, doctrines of self-abnegation, doctrines of outer direction, God is watching you, rather than individual inner assurance, doctrines of elevation of faith over reason, and the final doctrine of intolerance, every knee shall bow, brings to you this feeling of personal inadequacy. If anyone appears who has a mind of his own, and lo, here you are, society has means of repression, of subtle discriminations, of economic reprisals, and of social re-education. And they hate me and my family because we would not yield to any of them. You are inadequate to do anything yourself. Turn to God. Pray. Find solutions for your problems through wistful thinking. Since you were a child, you have been taught that God is the be-all and the end-all, and essentially that you're no damn good. And if you don't submit to these ideas, you can't serve on a jury, and George Bush doesn't want you as a citizen. Some years ago, I sued the school board in Baltimore, Maryland, to stop the reverential reading of the King James Bible and the unison oral recitation of the Lord's Prayer from that Protestant Bible in the public schools of the United States. In June 1963, the Supreme Court of the United States agreed with me, but before that, the attorney who began the case demanded that I give him a statement that could be a legal statement as to what an atheist is. And this was to be included in the case and therefore to inform the court what we were all about and our motives for bringing the suit. And here's what I wrote. It's still good, although it was written 30 years ago, and I think you'll accept it. Your petitioners, that means our family, the persons who had brought the suit. Your petitioners are atheists, and they define their position as follows. An atheist loves his fellow man instead of a God. An atheist thinks that heaven is something for which we should work now, here on earth, for all men together to enjoy. An atheist knows that he can get no help through prayer, but that he must find in himself the inner conviction and strength to meet life, to grapple with it, to subdue it, to enjoy it. An atheist knows that only in a knowledge of himself and a knowledge of his fellow man can he find the understanding that will help to a life of personal and societal fulfillment. An atheist then seeks to know himself and his fellow rather than to know a God. An atheist knows that a hospital should be built instead of a church. An atheist knows that a deed must be done instead of a prayer said. An atheist strives for involvement in life and not escape into death. He wants disease conquered, poverty vanished, war eliminated. He wants man to understand and love man. He wants an ethical way of life. He knows that he cannot rely on God, cannot channel action into prayer, and that there is no hope for any troubles, solutions in a hereafter. He knows that we are our brother's keeper. He knows that we're the keeper of our own lives, that we are responsible people, and that the job is here, and the time is now. Well, you need to know also what atheists are not. We are not realists, not secularists, not humanists, not agnostics. After all, agnostics are simply gutless atheists. Neither are atheist Unitarians. We do not hide behind a name because that name is thought to handle respectability. The plain, bare-boned term is the proudest and the most beautiful of them all. Being an atheist also means at least this. We do not accept that there is a God or gods, personal or in nature, manifesting himself, herself, itself, or themselves in any way. We do not accept the idea of heaven, hell, perdition, purgatory, or any other of the stages reached by escalator going either up or down. We do not accept that there is any life after death. We do not accept miracles. We do not accept the idea of angels, spooks, goblins, gremlins, leprechauns, elves, or souls. We simply do not accept that anyone at any time was ever a prophet of God who did not exist or which did not exist. We do not accept any so-called holy books as guides to life, And that includes the Bible, the Torah, the Veda, the Koran, the Upanishads, the Awaspi, they invent them constantly. We don't care whether that book was written by anyone in history, in any age in history, whether that was written by Moses, Mary Baker Eddy, Paul, Joseph Smith, Mohammed, Gautama Buddha, or the fickle finger of fate. We do not accept that there is now or has ever been a holy person, and that includes everyone from Mother Teresa to Moses to Jesus Christ. We call him JC. Mohammed, his daughter Fatima, the angel Moroni, the Pope, any Pope, all of the popes, any oracles, self-appointed or appointed by other persons, or elected by strange men in long red dresses. We do not accept that there is any efficacy in prayer. And we don't care whether they're said by your legislator, George Bush, yourself, myself, a priest, a rabbi, a minister, a guru, or even your mama. Atheists see all of this, first, as being totally subjective and going on only in your little heads, nowhere else. And secondly, we see it basically as simply being silly. We don't hate you. We think you're quite odd. But these are all very ancient, outmoded fables, and we no longer need to cling to them in our modern world. The most difficult thing in the world to do is to live in it, just to get along with other people, to earn a living, to meet our basic needs. And we do not need encumbered by all of these ideas which bring you a sense of guilt, a sense of inadequacy, of impotence. We need a decent, modern, sophisticated, workable set of standards by which we can get along with ourselves and others. And here we are in the atheists, and we got all of the answers. No God ever gave any man anything. We're on our own. We make it in this world ourselves, or we fail ourselves. We solve our problems, we find our happiness. We form our governments based on power derived from the people, not from God. Atheists are materialists also. We think that what you see is what you got. Mother Nature primarily. There are no supernatural forces, nor can they be. The goal of life is to live, whereas your religion tells you that the goal of your life is to die, so that you can spend eternal life with God. The atheists say, hey, man, you blow it here, and that's it. You only go around once. The beer commercial is correct. Make the best of it. Is any of this, though, any reason, anything that I have said, to exclude us from juries? To say that we aren't citizens? Well, John Murray filed this jury oath lawsuit saying that he considered the requirement to take a God oath, the requirement to say that atheism was a religion, under the First Amendment to the Constitution of the United States. But let's look at just a moment at that Constitution, because I'm having second thoughts about that First Amendment. I don't think it covers us. It talks about freedom of religion. It says pick one of the above. Methodist, Presbyterian, Roman Catholic, Lutheran. It doesn't say you can say no to religion. It doesn't say freedom from religion. It says freedom of religion. For the past 30 years, American Atheists has been a watchdog organization challenging church-state violations and fighting for the civil rights of atheism. Is it right that an atheist cannot give testimony in some courts in the land? Arkansas, you can't be a witness. Should atheists be excluded from any public office or position of trust simply because they're an atheist? And there were 6 states in the United States that said yes until we sued them. Should atheists lose custody of their children only because they're atheists? Should atheists be fired from their teaching positions when it is found out that they are atheists? Should atheists be forced to handle money daily, which has on it the religious graffiti under government command, quote, "In God we trust"? Should atheists be forced to say a flag pledge that declares that the United States is now one nation under God? All of you veterans of the Second World War never said that, because that oath was introduced to the Pledge of Allegiance in 1954, 8 years after the war was over. Should atheists be forced to accept the motto, "In God we trust"? Should atheists be forced to have the state of Florida's state motto be "In God we trust"? Should we be forced to support religious schools with tax money? Should we be forced to pay higher taxes on our land because religious organizations are tax exempt? In Texas alone, last year I got the figures that we think are pretty close to accurate, although they may be low. Religion in the state of Texas owns $81 billion worth of land, all of it taken out of the tax base. This forces all other homeowners to pay higher taxes, and it forces apartment dwellers to pay higher rent. Should you be forced to pay increased sales tax because none of the religious organizations in your state pay the sales tax? Every state in the union, they're excused, sucker. What do you pay, 6 cents, 7 cents, 8 cents? Well, there you are. Should you pay sales tax on gasoline because religious organizations can pull up and gas up and they're exempt from that federal tax? Did you know that? Should you pay taxes on the income you get from your share of stock at AT&T, your little 10 shares or 20 shares, because religion pays not a penny on any of those earnings? Should you be drafted into the Army as a buck private because ministers go in as commissioned officers? They're not going to share the same toilets as you. As a matter of fact, should you be drafted at all when any person who is preparing for the ministry is absolutely excluded from any draft? Should ministers be free from taxes on their homes while you pay taxes on yours? Well, you know, the Supreme Court has been giving a bunch of decisions on state-church separation, and some of these are so absurd that I can hardly believe it, but let me give you 2 samples. That court, the United States Supreme Court, invented the term benevolent neutrality. They need grammar lessons. And I have heard learned law professors, law colleges, judges, lawyers, congressional leaders, and legislators argue over the term benevolent neutrality. Now let me tell you, neutrality is neutrality. If it's benevolent, it is not neutral. If it is malevolent, it is not neutral. There is no such a thing as a one-sided neutrality that benefits religion. But we go merrily on with this, case after case. The other thing that the United States Supreme Court has done is to funnel tax money into church schools that you wouldn't believe it, under the theory of child benefit. But the thing is, I have never heard them ever use the phrase child benefit when they're talking about aid to public schools. Not once. I have never heard them use the term child benefit about our hungry children. I have never heard them use the term child benefit to do what they can to assist abused children. Incidentally, I'm always delighted when the religious community says 97% of America is Christian, and we have the highest rate of incest and abuse of children in the world. The Supreme Court has fashioned also a tripartite test, and this is to cover the favor it does for religious institutions of all kinds. I want to take just one, because I want to read what the federal district court judge said in the jury case about one of these tests. Whether or not what he did had a secular purpose. Quote, The jury oath has the secular purpose of conferring an atmosphere of formality on the jury deliberation and putting persons on notice of the seriousness of these proceedings. The reference to God or swearing by God is incidental. The judge lies in his teeth, and he knows it, and the appellate judge knows it. Even a small child could see. The atmosphere of formality is derived from the inclusion of the God oath. The seriousness of the proceedings is evident by calling upon God. Have you ever heard anybody call for prayer that the room didn't all shut up? We should have used that this morning. American citizens have been sufficiently programmed so that they understand they must roll over and play dead when they hear the magic word God. The word is venerated in our society, and the judge is a liar. On February 21st, American Atheists wrote a letter to every U.S. senator and every U.S. congressman. That letter asked basically, what are you, as an elected official, going to do about the insults which have been delivered to 12% of the population, and that's what the U.S. Census says we are. What are you going to do about the insults that have been delivered to American atheists by George Bush and by the federal judges? Not a one of the senators or representatives had the courage to reply. However, we know why. In prior conversations with certain of them, John Murray was told, and so was Rob Sherman, we do not dare say one thing about religion. We would be inundated with hate mail. We dare not even look sideways at an atheist, or we will lose the next election. This simply says loud and clear that our Constitution is not as good as a religious vote. There is so much fear in the United States that these lawmakers are intimidated. Ordinary people are terrified, and also all of you atheists have had a taste of this terror. I've talked to hundreds of thousands of atheists, I think, over the past 30 years. An atheist does not dare tell his wife what he is thinking. A grandfather does not dare open up his mouth to his grandchildren. A woman cannot tell her mother. Atheists everywhere are coerced to listen to prayers opening city councils, state legislative bodies, even PTA meetings here in Florida. If they protest, they will be the object of gross harassment in their communities. They fume in private. They're trapped at a table where grace is said. They despair when they hear what their children relate coming home from daycare centers run by churches. They are harassed by unwanted chaplains in hospitals. Even when I went to the hospital recently, and that damn chaplain came into my room and said, "What can I do for you?" I was cordial, I was nice, I gave him a short message, dropped dead. Music in shopping centers. How many of you hate the Christmas season? And then you pay for cable television to be piped into your home, and there's the last and most gross insult, because you have to see religious programming because it's all over the entire span. All of this is beyond harassment. It takes on the attributes of intimidation, of repression, of your right to freedom of conscience. It takes away from you your right to freedom of speech in the private sector, in the government sector, every place. You all cry over human history, I know I do, as we see what religion has done to Western culture for over 2,000 years. Had we followed paganism, had we followed the Grecian and the Latin cultures with their emphasis on knowledge and science, Armstrong could have walked on the moon in the year 300. we would not have lost 1,000 years to the Dark Ages, or whole cultures to the Crusades, or to the Inquisition, or that special blessing from the filth that the Christians promoted, the plagues. Atheists are here to stay now. We are ready to take over the culture and to move it ahead for the benefit of humankind. Religion has always been anti-human, anti-woman, anti-life, anti-peace, anti-reason, and anti-science. There's no longer any reason for human hunger anywhere in the world. There's no longer any reason for certain diseases to linger. Everyone in the world, beginning today, can have adequate clothing, housing, education, and health care. Let's get rid of war. Let's get rid of nuclear buildup. There is no longer any reason for the patchwork, inadequate bungling of the needs of the human community. Viable methods to cope are at hand. They are well known and they can be implemented today. We need not even wait until tomorrow. We are held back only by irrational thinking, and irrational thinking is rooted in religion. The world can no longer be intellectually incapacitated by being tied to fairy tales invented 50,000 years ago and then picked up by Judeo-Christianity to be put into force. We all need to move into the next century together on time and with reason as a guide. And toward that end, American Atheists plan to strive. And we ask only that those of you who have the brain and the heart to do it, join with us as we try to set the world straight. Thank you. I don't know if you noticed, but I couldn't see that damn thing. I'm 71 years old and my bifocals need corrected, I guess. I was struggling there for a moment.
There's your son.
Go behind the scenes of the events you follow on C-SPAN with the C-SPAN Update. Designed specially for you, the update offers articles about our coverage, profiles of Washington insiders, and program highlights every week. So call 1-800-845-9000 for your subscription to the C-SPAN Update. And as a gift, we'll send you Gavel to Gavel, a guide to watching the House and Senate. Isn't it time you got an update?